Hockey Inside Out, brought to you by Videotron. Welcome to another episode of Hockey Inside Out. Chris Nilan and Dave Stubbs joining me again today. Vanek sure put a damper on the St. Patrick's Day party at the Bell Center the other night, Chris.
Yeah, you know, again, he's been around it. You know, the transition coming from his second team this season now and trying to, you know, fit into the group, fit into the system has been tough. But, you know, he's been getting some chances. That's the thing. He had, you know, 5 shots the other night in the game, and then last night, you know, the dam broke finally.
Before he actually scored that first goal, he went back to the bench on another one of those chances that he had that he missed, and he banged his stick, and you could tell he was just starting to get frustrated that the chances were there and he just couldn't bury one. Then Darren set him up very nicely. It was an empty net goal. I mean, his first one. It was a beautiful setup, and then he scores another couple. So yeah, you could very much feel that there was this huge sigh of relief in the Canadiens' dressing room after that game.
Now, Patrick Roy back in town. Chris, what's your first memory of Patrick when he showed up on the scene with the Canadiens?
You know, just this little boy, actually. You know, he's just a young boy. And showing up here, he had them old leather pads, you know, no color on them, white mask. You know, and then I just think of McDonald's when I think of Patrick. You know, they called him Corso. He was always at McDonald's on the corner of Atwater and St. Catherine. You know,
imagine him today with dietitians and with the sports, all this stuff now. I mean, he's not going to be eating there too much.
Now, he certainly said all the right things when he was in town, Dave.
He did. There's no question. And the thing is, I expected after the first game that he coached at home against Anaheim, and he went crazy. He lost his mind and was shaking the glass and was screaming at Bruce Boudreau. I kind of figured I was giving him about 10 games. My over-under was about 10 games before he was the nuclear meltdown and was throwing garbage cans and stuff. But as I considered that in the blush of the next morning, there was no question in my mind that this was a very strategic move on Patrick Roy's part. This was to his team, I have got your backs and you can expect me to go to the wall for you. He was fined $10,000 for that. That wasn't a fine. That was an investment. That was investing in your team and telling them that you're going to be there. So yeah, Patrick said absolutely all of the right things. He talked about the Canadiens' grace in their class. He talked about how nice it was to be back in the Canadiens family. And then he talked about his own club. And he wanted to do this on Monday. He wanted to do it the day before the game, and he did not speak to us tellingly the morning of the game because he wanted this to be about his players. And that's what he told us he was going to do, and that's exactly what he did.
Well, in his press conference, he talked about trust, respect, and partnership. And that game against Anaheim, that was part of showing he was a partner with his players, and they got more respect for him there, that he was going to have their back, and you know, that was money in the bank.
In French, he used the word collaborators, which was interesting too. Very much that's it. He said that this system is designed for the players, it's not designed for the coaches. So this was important for him to send that message early, and he hasn't lost his temper. We were kind of kidding the players, saying, how many times did he come in here and peel the paint off the walls? And they said none. And Roy himself said, for me to come into the room, I would rather come in and be constructive and have solutions than yell about something that I can't undo, what might have happened in the first or second period.
Collaborators. That's a World War II term.
Yeah. Now, you had a good interview on your TSN 690 radio show this week.
Well,
with Mario
thank you.
Trombley,
Thank you.
Mario Trombley.
That had to happen sooner or later.
Dan Rather here.
Now, he said that him and Patrick are back on speaking terms now. Apparently, after they spoke at the golf tournament last summer.
Michelle was the mediator, sat them down and said, guys, you have to communicate better. No, apparently, you know, I wasn't aware of that. It's a good thing. You know, Patrick talked about how he had put all this behind him, and I wasn't aware that he had put the Mario Trombley part behind him, but apparently they have, and that's good. I mean, come on, it's over, it's done. Move on.
What was interesting too about that is when he spoke with us at his news conference on Monday, he listed a group of athletes who he played with in Montreal who he called leaders, and he said specifically Robinson, Gainey, Trombley, Carbonneau, Chelios, and it went on and on and on, the list could go. He didn't have to use Trombley in that shopping list, and it just sort of went by, and I'm thinking, okay, that's not J.C. Trombley and it's not Gilles Trombley, right? So obviously he's talking about Mario, and it was interesting that he has put all this behind him. He said, in fact, that he was ready to put it behind behind him a long time ago, but he said, interestingly, that it takes two to dance sometimes, and obviously this indicated that the Canadians perhaps were not ready to make the move to retire his jersey until they were, and then things started to, the fences were mended at that point.
Now, you said on your radio show you love Mario Trombley. What makes Mario Trombley such a good guy?
Oh, I just love his passion. You know, he loved the game of hockey. He played the game with fire, intensity. He was a great teammate, a lot of fun to be around. And we had a couple Molson X together once in a while. We had a blast. We had fun.
A pop or two, yeah.
We had fun.
These were two guys who just, you know, it was a bad time in the Canadiens organization at that point, where you had Patrick Roy marching down behind the bench, famously telling Ronald Cory, "I played my last game here." I think that what you needed that day and during that time was you needed these two guys to basically be given an old kindergarten timeout. I mean, send them to opposite sides of the room, have them think about things, come back in the cool light of day, a day or two later, and mend and get on with things. That didn't happen, and then Ronald Cory pulled the trigger on the trade. Reggie Ewell is the guy who's been hung out for all these years as being the guy who engineered it, but I'm convinced it was Ron Cory who made the trade, and Reggie was the guy who had to deliver the news.
Now, Mario told Chris that he regretted not pulling Patrick after the 7th goal, and our friend Michael Farber had an interview with Patrick before the game, and Patrick apparently was in a bad mood that day because Vinny Damphousse showed up late. He had slept in, and Patrick felt it wasn't fair that he wasn't disciplined. Did you heard that story before?
No, but to be honest with you, I don't care who you are, how much money you make. That's a team rule. That's a rule that you have to be here at this time. You're late. This is what happens. You either don't play or you're fined or whatever the rule is, you have to enforce it. And I think he made a mistake there for sure. I remember when Jacques Lemaire first came with the Montreal Canadiens, I missed the morning breakfast in Boston for an afternoon game. He said, "You're not playing." I was pissed off. But you know what? He had to come in and instill the discipline. And doing it to a guy like me, everybody was like, "Whoa, okay." And that's what you have to do sometimes. I think that hurt Mario right there.
John Ferguson did that to Bobby Hull in Winnipeg. He sat him down and he would not play him. The first game the Canadians played against the Winnipeg Jets, Bobby Hull did not play because he was late, and Tom McVie, who was then I guess he was Fergie was a general manager, came to us and said, "Do you have any idea what you're doing? This is our franchise guy." Well, the Jets win the game, so I mean he managed to work his way out of that. But yeah, you're right. There are team rules, and the thing about Patrick is there are still people in this city, and they will be there forever, who still believe that Patrick Roy quit on his team, that he walked out on the Montreal Canadiens.
And there's still people in this city that think Halak is better than Patrick.
You're right. You're right.
On that note, we'll take a short break and we'll be back. And Chris can tell us some tips that he gave Brandon Prust this season. Welcome back. Brandon Prust put on quite a show against the Colorado Avalanche. I understand, Chris, that you might have given him a few pointers this season.
No, not really. You know, honestly, Brandon Prust knows what to do out there. He played an incredible game last night. The leadership ability of this kid, without having to be a captain or assistant captain or anything like that, when he goes out on the ice and he stays healthy, God, he can do so much. He really, he can kill penalties. He's on the puck. Last night, the best line on the ice, without a doubt. I don't want to take nothing away from Vanek, but that line really got that team going last night. And then, as far as the fighting thing, we talked briefly last year. I saw him in the garage and just talking about throwing uppercuts, you know, because, you know, coming across and hitting visors or helmets, uppercuts help. And, you know, he's a smart fighter, and that's the thing, you know. He can, a lot of people wonder, how can you take on such a big guy and be successful? Well, he fights smart. He's an intelligent fighter, and that's what keeps guys like that around, keeps guys like that from getting major injuries like breaking your jaw, breaking your nose, losing your teeth, something bad, breaking your orbital bone, and then being out of the lineup and not being able to play. So good on him. He's just, he's your typical, prototypical hockey player.
I didn't want to see him take the Gordie Howe hat trick against Colorado after we had seen him go down against the boards and leave the ice, and you could literally hear the air escape the Bell Center. You could hear people gasp, because here's a guy who has had, I mean, his shoulders are a complete and colossal mess. I mean, you see Brandon Prust in the dressing room, he's got, I want to be the guy who has the ice franchise, the ice concession at the Bell Center, because, I mean, the amount of ice that this guy goes through. But it was gratifying, actually, after the game to see him not all wrapped up, all taped up. He said it was sort of upper body, and he said, until the Canadians tell me I can say something else. But, I mean, some of us were thinking wrist, arm. Chris, you're thinking maybe something...
Yeah, I don't know. Like, honestly, I haven't... You just don't know what it, like, You know,
just
when guys
awkward.
get hurt, everything's a secret. So it's something upper body, obviously. So I guess that is from the belly button up. I don't know.
But you know what?
I heard somebody say if it's a thumb injury, is it upper body or lower body?
Depending on how long your arm is. That's right. The thing that, and this is something. This is a topic, okay, for another day, guys. But one of the things that drives me crazy is this nonsensical upper body, lower body. You look at the Colorado Avalanche injury report from the game notes, and there is not one upper body, not one lower body. Everything is transparent, everything is out there. But I mean, this nonsense that they have, until the NHL mandates that the teams actually divulge this stuff and just make it public. I mean, I can't believe the guys are going to go out and try to target something. What's Carey Price? You're going to try to target a knee or a groin or what? I mean, like this lower body stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally out of touch.
I can see to a certain extent. And guys, you know, if a guy breaks his hand or coming back, he got something with his hand, I can see guys wanting to slash his hand. You know, they will target it, especially if it's a goal scorer. I think it's a little antiquated, this whole nonsense about not talking about injuries. Now, I mean, even if you want to go after a guy, you can't slash him anymore. Look at Pacioretty last night.
What a phantom slash that was, yeah.
And hooking guy, you can't do anything with your stick. Yeah, you hit a guy, it's part of the game. So I guess it's just the whole target issue.
And there's the betting in the NFL where you see the injury reports.
People start betting on the NHL.
Yeah,
then
that's right. And you have the billions of dollars that are bet in the NFL. That's why you have his second cuticle is nicked, and he may not be up to catching the football today.
God, that antiquated was.
You got it.
Even antiquated, but I like your pronunciation better.
Antiquated.
No.
Way to go, Knuckles.
Now, after the Colorado game, Michel Therrien said he hopes these lines stay together because it'll make his job easier. Do you think they will stay together? Or even as a player, how important is it to have fixed lines for an extended period?
You know, it's nice. Like I said, I played in the same line for like 6 years. I mean, come on. It's like, that's unheard of now. But, you know, it's nice to get with a group of guys and you feel comfortable. You know each other. You know where you're going to be. You start playing off each other well. You know, Pacioretty and Deane, that's great. Vanek in there, Gallagher there was great. But him and Vanek, not that they play the same way, but what happens is when Vanek's on the ice, he takes some pressure off of Max. They got to pay more attention to him. If they're paying more attention to Max, then Vanek's going to be open. Gallagher did that for Max. You know, he was going. Everybody's always worried about the little pest running around. So, you know, being with that line is fun. For sure, for a length of time. But sometimes when things aren't going, coach mixes it up. You have to go with it. There's nothing you can do.
I kind of chuckle when the coach says, I hope these lines stay together. Well, who the hell else is going to keep them together? Michel, it's your job, right? You do it. Keep the guys together.
Well, they will tell me what line they want to play with. They tell me. But the way they play.
If he does keep these lines together, Chris, that means we might have seen the end of Rene Bourque.
Well, you know what? I think we may have, unless there's a rash of injuries. Again, Rene Bourque, will he get another chance? Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I don't know what if it was concussion issues, something that he had with that kept him from playing that physical game. But whatever it is, he wasn't getting it done. And when you're not getting it done, you know, what have you done for me lately? You have to show up every night to play. And he certainly struggled way more than he played well. It's a tough situation.
Now, George Parros, Dave, seems to be in a similar situation now. You wonder when or if we'll see him back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was brought in, obviously, with some very specific purposes in mind, and the Canadians at this point just feel that maybe there's not enough speed or that maybe he's too one-dimensional a player to put him in the lineup as things are going now. And the thing that's remarkable, you look at this past week with the Canadians, they are down 4-1 against the Ottawa Senators with 2 minutes and 32 seconds to go. And if they lose that game, they have lost 4 games in a row. Instead, they come back, they pull off this incredible rally to wind up winning that hockey game, and now they're on a 3-game winning streak as we sit here today. So it's amazing how fortunes come and go in the National Hockey League.
And I was worried about this team, honestly, with the schedule going out west and everything, and they really, I mean, that Ottawa game, such a key for them to win that game, and now building up these points because it's crunch time and everybody's trying to make the playoffs. There was only 5 points from where the Habs were to 8th spot. I mean, you go on a bad week, you're in trouble. And they really, I was worried about them, but boy, they proved me wrong for sure.
Things are looking good right now for the Canadians, and we'll be back next week with another HIO show.